Hello, Arezki Daoud here from Arezki, and welcome to this brief assessment on the situation in the Sahel. Today is the 29th of January 2024. The Sahel is now clearly the next big thing in the geopolitics of the region, including Africa and the Middle East, etc. After the complete destruction of Libya, the same foreign forces that paid for the killing of a nation are now shifting their attention to the Sahel, establishing the basis of another sizable crisis that will likely take decades to extinguish. The Sahel has long been destabilized, at least in recent history. Its post-colonial era has been still dominated by France, despite the Sahelian nations being independent on paper. There have been no improvements for the region's conditions, but a fast worsening of their political, social, environmental, and economic conditions. While the military juntas in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, juntas that ousted presidents who were under the control of France, may have received a high degree of popular support, they're now facing a complex geopolitical context that they can't control, and which promises, as such, more troubles ahead. The dynamics of the post-coups are extremely complex and difficult. And here are some of the areas worth watching that will likely make the region more explosive than ever before. Firstly, the Sahel juntas have abruptly expelled France from the region. If there is one country that one must be worried about in this environment, clearly it is France. Paris has essentially been humiliated, but it does have assets in the region that no other foreign power can match. France is not likely to give up the Sahel that easily and abandon it. It will not abandon its influence there after centuries of an active presence. Three juntas with no experience, no financial resources, or diplomatic skills are no match to the expertise of France in the region. I don't mean to over-exaggerate or overestimate France. Yet not only it has unique historical ties and economic interest, but it also has strong networks and deep connections of influence, strong economic grip on the region, and unmatched resources that no one should consider its military withdrawal from the region as the final thing. More importantly, though, it has a grudge against junta leaders, and that's where the concern is. France's humiliation is not just about being evicted from the Sahel, but it's also about being replaced by Russia and the Wagner mercenaries. So as such, I do expect both overt and covert activities from France that will be meant to make the juntas pay a price for their actions against France going forward. Secondly, the Sahel juntas getting the Russians involved in domestic affairs is a problem. While no one should also underestimate Russia and its capabilities, Sahel is not a region it knows. Yes, Russia can expand its influence in a number of ways, including selling weapons, assisting the juntas with use of the Wagner Group, or assisting it in extracting minerals. But while violence and brute force, as used by the Wagner Group, may be effective on the short term to silence and indeed punish their northern populations for wanting autonomy, the Tuaregs are going nowhere, and war against them in northern Mali means war against their brethren in neighboring countries. The Russians' brute force tactics may soon face limitations when dealing with insurgencies like those of the Tuaregs. The Tuaregs from outside northern Mali will come to the rescue of their brethren coming from Niger, from Algeria, from Libya, Mauritania. And they will bring with them battle-hardened jihadists, given that now they have two common enemies in Mali in military, and they're Russian mercenaries. Over the next weeks and months, we are likely to read press releases and communiques coming from Bamako praising the gains of the Malian military and their Russian contractors. and how victorious they are in northern Mali. But I expect the Tuaregs will regroup and will bring help from their peers, eventually fighting back. And this will take months, actually years, to sort out and expect more troubles ahead. Thirdly, the humiliation of Algeria is another huge problem for the Sahel, mostly for Mali, actually. Mali has just announced its withdrawal from the Algiers Agreement. The agreement was the foundation of a peace deal between Bamako, that is the government of Mali, and the northerners, mostly the Tuaregs, negotiated by Algiers and signed in 2015. The withdrawal from the agreement followed a series of allegations made by the Malian junta against Algeria on all sorts of issues, including meddling in domestic affairs. The problem here is that Mali and Algeria share nearly a 1,400-kilometer border. That's 850 miles. And Algeria has microscopic visibility on northern Mali that inevitably makes it an important player in Mali politics. Algeria's intelligence services are well entrenched in North Mali, given the presence of terror groups that were active in Algeria in the 1990s and eventually migrated to the Sahel afterwards. Many of Al-Qaeda leaders in the Sahel are Algerians, and Algeria has always had strong ties with the Tuareg subgroups all over the Sahel. Like France, if not more due to its geographical position, Algeria is an inevitable actor in the Sahel context. Fourth, so as if the problems from its northern regions are not frightening enough, the Sahel is also on a collision course with its southern and western neighbors. As I predicted in recent analyses and podcasts, this past weekend, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have decided to withdraw from the Economic Community of West African States, or known as ECOWAS. And that's following a prolonged disagreement over ECOWAS's rejection of military rule in its sub-region. Three Sahelian states accused the regional group of deviating from the ideals of its founding fathers and the concept of Pan-Africanism after nearly 5 decades of existence. This move of withdrawing from ECOWAS is bound to create new frictions with the likes of African powerhouse Nigeria on the southern flank of the Sahel. This is another front that Sahel juntas opened and which can also cost them dearly. There is no doubt that Sahel governments have the right and obligation to enhance their sovereignty. It's another thing to do it in a way that the region is isolated through these self-inflicted wounds. Fifth point, while it's often easy to blame Russia for more destabilization of the Sahel, it's fair to point the finger to other players as perhaps being even more devious in this geopolitical game. Virtually everyone who had their fingers inside the Libyan pot, so to speak, is now in the Sahel, attempting to mediate between Algeria and Mali to ease their diplomatic tensions is Qatar. Qatar has been doing so because it wants to block the United Arab Emirates from increasing its influence in the Sahel. The UAE is often cited as wanting an escalation of trouble in the region, and just as it is accused of employing the Wagner Group in Sudan, it's also accused of using Wagner in the Sahel. Morocco also loves the drama Algeria finds itself. Given the animosity that exists between the two Maghreb nations, there's no doubt that Morocco is working to further undermine the Algerian presence and influence in the Sahel. Morocco is reportedly offering a sort of preferential relationship deal with Mali if it disconnects itself from Algeria. The Malian junta appears eager to follow that path. Meanwhile, lethal drones are everywhere in the region, and Turkey is a key supplier to the region with clear intentions of upping its influence there. So should we expect the Libya scenario to repeat itself in the Sahel? Well, the foreign forces that have been sponsoring instability in Libya are already there and working very hard. There are some interesting alliances forming or likely to form in the future. We see Algeria and France working to regain control of the situation. we see some tension forming between Algeria and its preferred weapon suppliers, Russia, over Wagner's alleged contracting on behalf of the UAE. We see the possibility of the Algeria-France alliance coalescing with Nigeria to contain the actions of the juntas in between. We also see Morocco and UAE work together to prevent a return of the old days. So, obviously, in final analysis, the weakest links in this development are actually clearly the Sahelian juntas themselves. Relatively young, inexperienced, poorly educated on diplomacy and on strategy, with nations suffering from lack of financial resources, the junta leaders are being played before our eyes. A little bit of money from here and from there can sway their positions easily. And that's what the foreign meddlers are doing. The ultimate loss, though, is for the Sahelian populations. Sadly, they will remain in a state of utter instability for decades. Well, until our next talk, thank you for listening and goodbye.